Hi everybody. So this is going to be my mixing video. This is going to help you all know how to mix your paints for the 4 different thicknesses. There are 4 different thicknesses and recipes that you need to be aware of if you want to be able to do all the different pours. So I have come up with this recipe card. And you will see this in the beginning of this video. I've got it set to stay up there for 7 seconds. You could take a screenshot of it. You could take a picture of it, whatever you want to do. But this gives you the recipes. I don't even know if this is going to be backwards, but the first one is the Swipe and Bloom. The second one is the Dutch Pour. The third one is a ring pour or vase pour, because that needs to be thicker. The Dutch needs to be thinner. And the Bloom and Swipe is special altogether. It's like one of a kind. And then down on the bottom is the recipe for all other pours. So this card is going to give you all 4 so you know exactly what you need to do. And we're going to talk through this, and I'm going to show you how to do things. So I'm going to start with the first one, and that's the Swipe and Bloom. So this is a swipe. This is where you put all your paint on the canvas, all your colors down in all different ways, or if you want it more structured, you put the cell activator on top, and then you put the cell activator on a playing card or a piece of plastic or a spatula or something, and you swipe over the colors, and this is what you get, cells all over. Okay, so this is the swipe technique. This is the Bloom technique. This is the one that I've been doing the most of, where you put your colors in the center, you put your cell activator on top, and you blow it with the hair dryer. You blow the cell activator over the colors. So right now we're talking about the Swipe and the Bloom. So here's what you need. I'm just going to show you everything as I use it. So this is the pillow, the original base that goes on the object you're painting on. This is ColorPlace Classic Interior Paint. It is antique white. You can use eggshell white. You can use white. You can use whatever color you want. You can use black. But the ColorPlace is nice because you can use it right out of the can. So I put it into a smaller container like so that I can, work with it easier. So this is the pillow. Okay, and that's really inexpensive at Walmart. So that's a good thing. Now your colors. Your colors use the thing that I have found that works best is this Varathane triple thick polyurethane. That's 1 tablespoon of that. And this jug, it's Glidden GLN 6413N. It's when you go to Home Depot and you say, I want a gallon of paint to paint my walls, they're going to pull this base, and it says on here that it's a base and must be tinted. This is what they pull, and then they take it to that machine and they add all the little pigments to get you the color you want. Well, you want to get this base, but you don't want them to put anything in it. You're just using it plain. They're going to say, oh, you have to tint that. Don't listen to them. You just want the base. And you can also use any base 3. There are other companies, Behr, Valspar, or different companies that make different bases. So any base 3 or base C or deep base. So, and they will all say these must be tinted, but don't tint them. So you can find what you can get, but everything, these 2 things come from Home Depot. Everything I need, I can get from Home Depot, so that makes it easy. Sherwin-Williams and Valspar, you'll find at Lowe's. So if you're at Lowe's, you could buy their base and this urethane as well. So what I did with these 2 to make things easier is I put my Glidden Base 3 in here, and I put my Varathane in here so that I don't have to open that big jug all the time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how to make two colors here. So this one, I have my cups labeled. Liquitex Deep Violet Paint. This is a paint. Then I have Primary Elements Laguna Azul Pigment. I'm going to show you how I mix these. So let's say my Liquitex is getting low. It is. I need to make more. Now granted, I could be starting out with a fresh container like you will, but I'm just going to add to this because this just lasts. It's airtight, it's sealed, it's not going to go bad on you or anything. So when I see that I'm getting low, I just make more in the same container. So I've got a tablespoon and a teaspoon. In this instance, I'm going to use the tablespoon. So I'm going to take, because my recipe is 1 tablespoon of the Varathane and 1 tablespoon of the Glidden Base 3. So I'm going to take, I'm going to get rid of the little crusty on top. I'm going to squeeze in 1 tablespoon of my Varathane, and I'm gonna turn you down here now a little bit. There we go. I'm gonna take 1 tablespoon of my Varathane and scoop it out with a stick. And then I'm going to take 1 tablespoon of my Glidden. I'm going to squirt it in. And I usually like to use just shy of a tablespoon onto this. This Glidden is very thick. It'll work if you go all the way, but I just prefer to use a little less. So now I've got both of those in there. I take and I put my spoon in a cup, and I'm also going to put this stick that just has the white on it, in that same cup. Then I'm going to take another stick to stir it. So now you want to get these two incorporated with what you already have in the jar or in the container before we add our paint, because we're going to add paint. So now you can see this got quite a bit lighter because we are diluting the paint that was already in there. We still need to add some paint. So now what you do, we've got those two incorporated. We're going to take our Liquitex Basics Deep Violet, because that's what I'm making here. And these tube paints, let's talk about that. These are thicker, okay? Amsterdam paints are even thicker than this. Grumbacher paints are even thicker than this. Then you have like your craft paints that come, your liquid craft paints that come in these bottles. These are thinner. So the recipes that I'm giving you are rough, a rough approximation. We're going to have to add some water to this. So what you won't need, you'll need to add a lot of water to this really thick paint or this really thick Amsterdam. You'll need to add less water to the Liquitex Basics. You will have to add even less water to these craft paints, because these are already very liquid. So you kind of have to play it by ear, but these are the general recipes. So with this, I'm going to add, I'll show you on the stick. I'm going to add 2. See that? Let me show you. This I call, it's a little bit larger than a pea-sized blob, but you get the picture. Like 2 of this into this container. So I'm going to scrape that out, and I'm going to add 1 more. There you go. That's more of a pea-sized blob. So you put 2 of those pea-sized blobs in here too. And here comes our color. It's getting back to what we want. If you want it darker, you can add a little bit more paint, but then you'll have to add a little bit more water. So if you want it lighter, don't put in as much paint. But I like to match what I've already created. So now I'm going to show you. You see, it leaves a mound, and the mound hangs around. Now it's got a glob, so we have to stir a little bit more. This is too thick. So you can thin this with, let me show you that. You can use Minwax polycrylic to thin your paints. You can use any varnish, or you can use water. I just use water, and it does not affect my blooms. So I put in just about the size of a nickel. Just a little pile of water about the size of a nickel. And once you've been doing this a long time, you're going to be able to feel your paint. You're going to know, oh, this is way too thick. You're just going to start stirring it, and you're going to think, oh, that's way too thick. You'll know. So now I'm going to show you the difference it made. It's still thick. It's still too thick. So we're going to put another nickel size addition of water. And now I know that this is just right. So the main thing about paint pouring is, not with this bloom technique, but with the other techniques, is that you want all your paints to be consistent in thickness. And I'm going to show you how to figure that out later. This bloom technique, no. You've got 3 different thicknesses. And that's better. The mound is disappearing quickly, and that's the thickness that I like. So that's how you mix a paint. Okay, so I'm going to scrape this off, put it in another cup, and that is done. So now I'm good to go for a while with this color. Now I'm going to show you how to mix a pigment. So this is Laguna Azul from Primary Elements. I get it from colorart.com. That's COLOURARTE.com. And these are your pigments. So instead of having this big thing of paint, you have pigment. This is a powder in a jar. So now I'm going to go back to, this mixes the same way. So now back to my spoon that only had the varathane and glidden in it. So I'm going to do 1 tablespoon, and I'm going to take my little white stick that I used before for this stuff. I'm keeping that clean. So you just keep using that stick for these things, so you don't get any paint color into them. And then you can just keep going right down your line of colors and keep making more. Using a new stick to mix it once you put the paint in. So these 2 are going back in the same cup. Now I'm taking a new stick. I'm going to stir this together. Get it incorporated. I love this color. But see, if I didn't add more pigment to this right now, I would lose the iridescence and the shine that appear in there. So, okay, that's mixed nicely. Now, I need to add the pigment. So, Color Art gives you these nice little spoons. You do want to be careful with this. You don't want to inhale it. So I'm very careful opening it up. I'm very careful taking, it's about a half a spoon. See? And look at the shine in here. These are all pure pigments. And so I'm going to use, it's hard to tell. It's about a half a spoon, just that much. Put it in your thing, cap it off, set your spoon aside, and cover this up. Now, I will tell you, these pigments are, if you do go this route, some of your jars will be filled more, some of your jars will be filled less because it's based on weight. And some of these pigments are heavier than others. Some of the colors, you'll look at this, the one red one that I have, it's supposed to be a red. It actually looks orange in the container, but when you mix it with your ingredients, it turns to the red. So you can't judge by the color that is on, that you see in the bottle. So that's why I always put a little dot of paint on here so I know what it really looks like for when I want to use it. Because if I was going by the jar, it would not look like anything like what it's going to turn out to be once it's mixed. So yes, some of them are deceiving. Not all of them, but some of them. So now we're just going to stir this up. Now the thing about pigments, they are not as thick. They need very little water. You don't have to add as much water to it to get the correct thickness. But your paints, you do. So I think I've got everything mixed in here. Let's take a look at it. All right, so that is a little thick. I'm going to add a little water, but I'll probably only need to add one nickel-sized thing of water because this is a pigment. And yes, that is absolutely true because I can already tell it's just right. And you don't want to add your water all at once. You want to do it in little bits because you don't want it to get too thin. And you also have to give the paint or the pigment time to absorb the water. So you want to do it in little portions. And see, that's what I want. It makes a little mound, it disappears quickly. So you do not need as much water with your pigment. And that's where it's going to be up to you to test it and make sure that you get the right consistency. All right, so that's how you mix your colors for the bloom and the swipe. Now we have a cell activator. And I'm not going to mix this because, first of all, you need to make your cell activator fairly fresh. You don't want it sitting around for weeks or months. It won't work right. It will lose its pizzazz. So usually I make one of these every week, and that gets me through the week, and then I throw it out if I have any left, and I make a new batch. And it's not time for me to make my new batch yet, but I'm going to show you how you do it. So this is something called Australian Floetrol. This is like liquid gold to fluid pour painters. And I will tell you, this was $32 for this little container, okay? But the only thing you're going to use this for is this bloom swipe technique. And every week, you just need to take 1 tablespoon of this out. 1 tablespoon. This is 500 milliliters. This is going to last me probably 2 years or more. I don't know how long, we'll see, but I don't know how long. I suppose I could do the calculations and figure it out, but you're only taking 1 tablespoon out of this. So you take your tablespoon of Floetrol, you put it, this is my special little container of my liquid gold. And so I put this 1 tablespoon into here. And then I put 1 teaspoon. Now this is where this is important. For your cell activators, you want to use a good quality paint. Amsterdam paints work fabulously with this Australian Floetrol. So I make my black with this oxide black Amsterdam paint. I make my white cell activator with this titanium white Amsterdam paint. You can also make it out of other colors. If you wanted a blue cell activator, I would suggest you use Amsterdam. If you want a purple cell activator, I would suggest you use Amsterdam. This Amsterdam and that Australian Floetrol, I don't know what it is, but I went through a couple months of trying different recipes that, you know, other people tried, and it did not work well. So anyway, you mix that in a container. I'm sorry, not 1 teaspoon, a little bit shy of a teaspoon of the black or white paint, and 1 tablespoon of the Australian Floetrol. So that is how you make your cell activator. There is a way, there is a recipe that's so-so. It's okay. If you can't afford the Australian Floetrol, then I would suggest you go this way. So you want to use, this is American Floetrol. Australian is red, American is orange. This is like $7 for this. It would last you forever. But you would use 2 tablespoons of this, 1 teaspoon of paint, and 10 drops of this Minwax pre-stain. These 3 items come close to mimicking the Australian Floetrol cell activator. However, it's nowhere near as good. I would just buy the Australian. You will stop struggling. You will be happy with your paintings. And this, make your own, it just doesn't do it. I don't like it. It doesn't look as nice. And I think you'll be happier with the Australian. So that is that. So now let me look at my notes here. If you get your paint too thin as you're mixing it, you can thicken it with Elmer's Glue All. Get some Elmer's glue. It has to be Elmer's Glue All, not school glue, not Elmer's regular glue, Elmer's Glue All, and you can thicken your paints with that. And I already told you, you can thin your paints with Minwax or water or any varnish. You do want your cell activator to be a contrast. So let me show you here. I had to shut the door because my husband came down. So if I took this painting and I used a white cell activator, you wouldn't even see all these pretty designs. That's why I used black. Now, if I'm going to do a darker color painting, like deep purples, deep blues, very dark, and you used a black cell activator, you're not going to see it. So then on that, you want to use a white cell activator or a lighter color activator. Regarding the cells, these are all little cells, okay? So the theory behind this, it's all about chemistry, and that's why you kind of have to use these particular things, because they've been tested to work together. So cells happen when heavy paint falls down through lighter paint. Now, I'm not talking thinner or thicker. I'm talking heavier or lighter. So black and white paint is very heavy. Blue paint is very heavy, and red paint is very heavy. They weigh more. So this is why you have to be careful in all your paintings. Don't go overboard on the dark blues or the dark reds, or any red for that matter, because it's just going to take over your painting. It's more pigmented. And so cells happen when heavy paint falls down through lighter paint. So when you're doing your bloom and your swipes, you want your pillow to be thicker, so that's your color place paint. You want your colors on top of that to be thinner than the bottom, so they are a certain consistency. And then you want your cell activator on top to be thinner than the colors that you're going to put it on top of. So what happens is your black has to be thin enough to allow the lower paints to come up through them. And this is why when I blow with my turkey baster, I'm blowing straight down. I'm blowing that black cell activator into the colored paint so that the colored paint, it helps it come up and you see the colors pop up through all this black. So that's how that works. I get my Amsterdam paints at jerrysartorama.com. You can also get them at Michael's. I use Liquitex Basics from Michael's. Watch for the sales. So here's the thing. You could buy this cheaper craft paint for like $1.59, or you can spend $5 and get this. You're going to need to use a lot more of this to get the pigmented color that you want than using 2 little pea-sized blobs of this. So this is going to give you a prettier painting. It's going to go farther. It's going to last longer, and you're going to use less of it. So that's why I started out with these cheapo ones just when I was getting started, because I thought I want to see if I like doing this. And I was very disappointed in everything I created because it wasn't really vibrant, because these don't have the same amount of pigment as your better paints. So you're really going to save more money buying the better paints if you can. There's nothing wrong with using craft paints though. Let me see. So everything that I showed you here, the Floetrol, the American Floetrol, the Varathane, the Glidden, the Minwax Pre-Stain, you can get that all at Home Depot. I've told you about where, oh, I didn't tell you that. There are 2 companies that sell this in the United States. You're not buying it from Australia. These other 2 companies are, and they get it, and they sell it to us as consumers, so you don't have to pay customs tax and all, and wait weeks and weeks for it to come. So this is BeckySelmansArtStudio.com or fluid-art.co. They both sell this here in the United States, and you can get it really quickly. And so that is everything about the swipe and the bloom. Now we're going to move on to the Dutch pour. This is a Dutch pour. You can see it's very thin and flowy, and the color is blowing out thinner, and it's very watery when you do it, very thin. It gives you almost an ethereal look. So now that's what we're moving on to. So that is going to be your thinnest recipe. And I have it on the card here. You'll be able to see it. This is very important that that all your colors are the same consistency. So whereas I keep my paints for my blooms and my swipes in these, I mix my Dutch pours in these condiment bottles. You can get them cheap, 2 for $1 at a dollar store. So anyway, and then all I have to do is shake it up, and I'm good to go. I'm good to, I don't know if you remember, but what you do is you put down a base first, and that will be this same consistency. Every paint that's going on this canvas for a Dutch pour is going to be the same consistency. So I have a white one of this to put down for my base, and then I have all my colors. But I don't know if you remember the video, when you do a Dutch pour, you're going to do a line like this, and then you're going to take another color, and you're going to do a line on top of that, and you're going to put your colors down like that, and then you're going to use your hair dryer to blow them out. So these are just much easier to get that thin little line going across. So that's why I have these in bottles. So now I'm going to show you how this works. So for the Dutch pour, you want, I've got, let me get my I hung it up. Okay. I've got my Liquitex turquoise blue. So this recipe calls for 80 milliliters of American Floetrol, 40 milliliters of paint, and 30 milliliters of water. So I'm going to take my Australian Floetrol, and you can see on this cup there are milliliter markings and there are ounces markings. So I'm going to fill it up to the, you always want to shake your Floetrol because it settles. So I'm going to take my cup and I'm going to put in approximately 80 milliliters of Floetrol. It does not have to be exact. This is very forgiving. 80 milliliters of Floetrol, 40 of paint. So I'm at 80, so now I have to get up to 120. So I'm going to put paint in to bring this up to 120. Now this is where you're going to use a lot of paint for these types of techniques. This is why I like the blooms, because they use less paint. But this is going to make you a lot of paint. So you'll be okay. Okay, so now I'm up to 120. Okay, now I want to add 30 milliliters of water. So if I'm at 120, now I want to add water until I get to the 150 mark. So I'm just 80 plus 40 plus 30 equals 150. That's where we need to get to. So I'm going to add, now you see that's a lot of water because this is a very thin pour. So now we're going to take and stir this up. And we got to go a while. So these are really easy to make. And these markings on these cups make it very easy for you. If, I mean, you could translate this to parts. So it would be 2 parts Floetrol, 1 part paint, and a little less than 1 part of water. So then you could measure with whatever you have. If you want to use a 1/3 of a cup measuring cup, you would do 2 of the 1/3 of Floetrol. You would do 1 of the 1/3 of paint, and you would do a little less than 1 of water. So you can, you know, divide up these recipes however you like. If you prefer working with parts instead of milliliters because you don't have one of these cups that show you milliliters, you can use parts. So now I'm going to show you the consistency of this. Look at this. All right, let me get it. Hold on. Okay, I got to do it back here. See, it's not leaving a mound at all. It's just, I'm trying to, here. There we go. It's no mound at all. That's how thin this is. And then, once we've got that done, and this is no muss, no fuss, just mix it, it'll be good. It just needs to be that thin. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my lid off. I'm going to pinch my cup a little bit. I'm going to pour this into my container. And I'm done. Okay. So now I filled up probably half of this container. That's going to last me a while. And I did have to use a lot of paint to mix this, but it's going to last. So it looks like a lot. And really, your expenses at the beginning of all of this are more because you've got to get quite a few things. But once you have them, you've got them for a while. You're not going to use them up. Okay, so that is the Dutch pour paint. Now, this paint is also used for all other pours. So I've done the bloom and the swipe. I've done the Dutch. This is the same recipe that is used for all other pours, but not the ring pour or the pouring on vases. So just remember when you get to all other pours, and I'll show you some other pours. This is a straight pour. This is where you put paints in a cup and you drizzle them on and you tilt the canvas around. This is a Kaleidoscope pour. This was done through a strainer for pasta, a pasta strainer. You put it on here, you drizzle your colors in, and right out of the bottle, you can drizzle your colors in and it will come out through the holes of the strainer and give you a look like this. There are so many pours that are in the all other pour category. So that's what that means. Now I'm going to show you, let me make sure I did, okay, so with these bottles, very, very important, you have the same consistency. So how can you figure that out? I'm going to show you. You're going to take a piece of paper. I'm just going to put it in this little tray right here. It needs to be a little thinner. So I'm going to, let's say we're going to use 5 colors. Right now I'm just going to use 2. So let me shake this up. Oh, and this is a metallic. When you make your metallics, you are going to need to add, all metallics are thicker. So I'm going to show you what a metallic looks like. Look at this metallic. Look at how thick it is. It's not even moving. So you're going to need to add more water to metallics when you're mixing them in your bottles. Okay, the metallics are just thick. Okay, so we've got our piece of paper. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put, let's start with this end. I'm going to put 2 equal sized drops of paint. Whoop, that one got too big. See, that one's a metallic, so it came out. All right, so I have 2 equal sized drops. Now, we're going to tilt this and see what they do. Now that blue one is moving just a tad faster because there was more of it. If it was the exact same size as the other one, it would be moving more to it. But that's telling me my blue is too thin because it's moving faster. So what I would want to do is add more water to the gold or more paint to the blue to bring it to the same consistency. And then you would test again. And you want to see that they are both moving at the same speed. So that is how you get your consistency the same. Okay. Now we're going to go on to the ring pour or pouring on vases. So I just did one of those yesterday. I haven't even posted it. But what you do is you put a canvas down. You'll see this video before I even post this mixing video. And you put, see me in my bare feet. You put a cup on top of the canvas. You put the vase on top of the cup. This way, after you've poured all your paint on the top of the vase and it's oozed down, you can grab the cup and take it off of the canvas and then tilt your canvas so so you don't waste all that paint. So this is a ring pour, and you need your paint to be a little bit thicker for the ring pours, because you can do a ring pour directly on a canvas, and when you do that, you will see, like here, you can see that, you can see it really well on the top, but that's because it stayed put, okay? So this was silver and 2 shades of blue, you could see, but when you look at the sides, it has come down. You can see the silver a little bit and the difference in the blues, but not as much. Because this was done as a dirty pour, where you mix all your colors in one cup and you just drizzle them on, so they kind of blend together more. But what you can do is, if you want to use 5 different colors, say, like what I could have done is with my 2 shades of blue and my silver, I could have poured them on here individually. I could have poured my blue by itself, then I could have poured my silver by itself, and you would have seen more contrast that way. So that's another way to get more contrast. I wanted to go with the dirty pour, where you pour all 3 paints into the same cup, and try that first. And I don't really care for it, because it just everything mixed together and you don't get the contrast as much. So this is why when you now you can do that dirty pour right on a canvas. I'm sorry, not the dirty pour. The separate pours right on the canvas, and you will see every line of white and dark blue and light blue, and if you use purple or yellow, the definition will be much more. And so you want that paint to be thicker, so that those don't ooze into each other and you lose your definition. So that ring pour is also called a tree ring pour, and I mean, they're just gorgeous. I'll be doing one maybe later today with the colors poured separately, and you can see every ring. It is just so vibrant and pretty. So anyway, for the ring pour, you want, and I'm not going to create this now, but I'm just telling you about it. You want 5 parts of Floetrol, the American Floetrol, 5 parts of Floetrol, 3 parts of paint, 2 parts of water. So that's how you get that thicker consistency for the tree ring, so it holds it holds the definition and shape of the rings. For the all other pours, we're going to that now, and that's back with these kind of paints, all other pours. You can add, so that's something like this. There's flip cups, there's straight pours, there's sliding pours, there's the Kaleidoscope Pore, there's the dish strainer pour, there's so many of them. But anyway, you know, it's all other pours. Well, what you can do is, if you want a lot of cells in here, like, you know, remember these cells we got here? You can get cells on these types of paintings too, these all other pours. And usually you will get cells just by using the American Floetrol. You'll get some. But if you want like really vivid cells, I got something from, it's called Montmart, and it's silicone oil. And when you're mixing, when you're making your paints, like let's say you want to use, you know, these 2 colors and black on your painting. So you can put 1 or 2 drops of this into these colors and you'll get cells on this painting. But you don't want to put it into your bottles, because I'll tell you why in a second. So what you want to do is you want to pour some of this out into little cups, like Dixie cups, and then add your silicone oil. And this is oil reacting with water, so it's just like you see when you have a vinaigrette dressing. You see the oil on the top in those little circles, same concept. So you would want to pour these paints into your into a Dixie cup and add 1 or 2 drops of that silicone oil to it. Stir it just barely. The more you stir, your cells are going to be tiny. The less you stir, the bigger the cells you're going to get. Now, the reason that you don't want to pour this right into your bottle is because you may not always want to use this, because when it comes time to finish your painting, and Floetrol causes a matte finish. When this dries, it'll look beautiful right after you've poured it. It'll be shiny and while it's still wet. It will dry to a flat finish. I don't have anything that is not finished down here, so I can't show you, but it'll dry to a matte finish. So you're going to need to seal your painting. Number 1, to keep it clean. Number 2, so that if it gets wet, your paint doesn't come off. So you're going to want to seal your painting. Well, guess what? If you use this silicone oil on your painting, you're going to have to clean your canvas first and get those oils off the surface. So you can use a paper towel with 91% rubbing alcohol. You can use Windex. You can actually wash this in Dawn soap really quickly in like a pan of dish soap. Wash it, wipe it off, and then let it dry. But now you're going to have to let it dry for 3 weeks so that it's completely dry. So that's why you want to be careful where you put your silicone oil. Every painting that you do, you want to, it'll be dry for the most part by the next morning, or at least in 2 days, and you'll think, oh, it's dry, I can go ahead and finish it and I can give it as a gift or whatever. No, you have to let these paintings cure for 3 weeks so that they are completely dry. It may look dry, but it's not adhered, it's not ready to be sealed. So when you do want to seal, there are 2 different types of sealants. So I use for my paintings, this is sealed, and I don't know if you can see how glossy, yes, there's the gloss. You can see how glossy it is. So this is Liquitex Gloss Varnish. This is non-yellowing. It will not turn your colors yellow, and this is the best thing that I have found and that I use for everything. I tried the Minwax polyacrylic. People said you can use that, and no, it yellowed my colors, so it basically ruined my painting. But all you do is I put, and I can't tell, all right, let me show you. Right now my level is down to here. I have probably sealed 40 paintings with that much. So this is going to last you a long time too. It's a little bit more expensive. You can get it at Michael's with coupons, and that's the best way to do it. And I just put a little bit of it in this container. I just tap my brush, get a good quality brush that's nice and soft and flexible. I just tap it in there, and I just rub it over the canvas. And you don't want to brush too many times. Just leave it. Put it on, leave it, and walk away. Make sure you get your sides too. And then in about 2 hours, you can come back. You're going to give it a second coat, but now you're going to go the other way. And this gets rid of your brush strokes. It makes sure that you covered everything that needs to be covered. Do your sides again, and you're done. And you let it dry for another, I let it dry overnight. It's done by the next morning. So that's how you seal your canvases. Remember, you have to wash your canvases after you use silicone. So that puts a whole lot more time into the process. And then for these are going to be coasters. These are ceramic tiles. Okay, so you're going to be putting hot cups on here. You're going to be putting cold cups on here. So you need something that can withstand heat. And so for this is the other thing I use. It's engine enamel. And it takes care of up to 550 degrees. And this is a spray. And you just spray a light coating on it. You wait, I think it was 30 minutes. You could go back and do the second coat. I go back, I spray another light coating on it, and it brings back all those vibrant colors, and look at the shine that it gives. It's really shiny. And then I just put cork on the back. So these are coasters or trivets. You can do, you can get tiles that are 8x8, 6x6, 12x12, whatever. And so you can do bigger projects with those. So let me see where I am. I'm almost done. I knew this was going to be a longer video, so I'm sorry. Oh, the quality of your paints. So we've already talked about, you know, there's your craft paint that you can buy very cheaply. These would be apple barrels, folk art, things like that. These are Liquitex Basics. Those are more of like a student level. So that would be Liquitex Basics, Artist Loft, Amsterdam, Grumbacher. And then there are professional paints. That would be like the Golden brand, the Artist Loft Professional. Those are really expensive. So these Liquitex and Amsterdams are middle of the road. They're not this cheap and less pigmented, but you know, they're better, but yet they're not as expensive as the professional level. With the pigments, I really love the pigments. You get such vivid colors with so much, most of them have metallics in them. Most of them have iridescence to them. These are what will really boost up your the look of your paintings and make them special rather than just using paint. Oh, and there is one more thing I was going to tell you about. It is called transparency. So if you look at paints, you see this little square at the bottom down right here, how that square is filled in totally black. This means that this is an opaque paint, meaning it's solid. You can't see through it. You can't, and you'll see the black has it as well. You don't see through it. It's not transparent. Let me find one that has a different, so I can show you the difference. Hold on. Okay, here we go. Oh, my thing is falling over. This one. This is burnt sienna. Now you see on this one, that little square has a line through it, meaning that it is more transparent, semi-transparent. So this paint has the square that's completely filled in, and this paint has the square that has a line through it. You can see through it. So it means you can see through this paint. You can't see through this paint. So if you put this over this, this is going to wipe out this. So you want to keep that in mind as you're layering your paints. And I think that that's about it. I think I have covered everything except for layering. I got like 7 minutes here before I hit an hour, so I'll just talk briefly about that. You want to make your paintings contrast. You know, you see things better. Like if you're going to use a dark blue and a dark purple next to each other, you're not going to see the difference really well. But if you put a white in between the two, they're going to stand out. You're going to see the blue, you're going to see the purple, because you've got that white in between blocking it, you know, dividing it. So what I usually do, like if I'm doing this painting, say, I used a dark blue, I used a light blue, I used a teal color, I used a copper. So the best thing to do is pick let's say you're going to use 3 colors. If you want to do a purplish painting, use a dark purple, a medium purple, a light purple, and a white, and layer them accordingly so that it's dark light, dark light. You also want to layer, I always make sure when I'm doing my blooms and laying down my colors, I start with a paint, because the pigments will sink into your base and you won't see it as well. Start with a paint that doesn't sink in. Go paint, pigment, paint, pigment, paint, pigment. That's why I label what I have, paint or pigment. So you want to keep that in mind too. So what I do before I start a painting, I lay out my colors. And I'll see, okay, so, oh gosh, I've got 2 pigments together. What purple do I have that's a paint that I can use instead? And then I'll switch that out and bring that paint over so that I have paint, pigment, paint, pigment. It's not awful if you have 2 pigments next to each other, but you don't want your pigment to be the first thing down. So if you did paint, pigment, pigment, paint, pigment, pigment, or paint, paint, pigment, paint, paint, pigment, just try to put them, layer them in alternating. And so I hope you learned something. The other thing is, if you don't have these cups to measure, but you have a little scale, this is a very accurate scale. My husband bought it for measuring powders. And so you go to mode and, okay. Oh, I have to set it down, I guess, huh? Let's try again. There we go. So you go and you touch this mode button. You can measure in grains, ounces, and grams. So if you wanted to do the 80, 40, 20 of these bottles, you could measure it that way. It's just a comparison. So you could measure 80 grams of paint, 40 of Floetrol, 40 grams of paint, and 30 grams of water. Or you could switch it to ounces. So you'd end up with the same mixture. So you can use this. So you could put a cup on there. You could zero it out. You hit the clear button. You can zero it out. And you could just start adding until you get to 80. Then you add another 40 to get to the 120. Then you add another 30 to get to the 150. And by the time you're done, your scale will be at 150. You know you've got what you need. You pour it into your bottle. You shake it up. You're ready to go. So that's another good way to do it. So, okay, I'm at the 58-minute mark. I'm going to stop. I hope this was helpful. Please, please, please subscribe to my channel. Like the video. Feel free to refer back to it. I will put this recipe card in at the beginning of the video and give it time so you can screenshot it. Just you can go back in the video and get to it now if you want. It's right at the beginning or near the beginning. It's like the 3rd screen, I think. And that is how you can save this to your phone, to your computer, whatever, and use it. I hope this was helpful. All right. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.